The breach protocol Admiral Korvac Thane had witnessed the birth and death of stars, commanded fleets across 17 different galactic sectors, and negotiated peace treaties with civilizations whose very existence challenged conventional understanding of life itself. Yet nothing in his 63 years of service had prepared him for the readings that cascaded across his command screens at 0847 hours, Galactic Standard Time. The massive reptilian admiral stood motionless at the center of the bridge aboard, his flagship Sovereign's Wrath. His scaled hands pressed flat against the tactical display as impossible data streams flickered before his golden eyes. His crew of various alien species worked in tense silence, their usual chatter replaced by the weight of what they were witnessing. The Crimson Sector stretched before them like a bleeding wound in the fabric of space itself. For 8 centuries, this region had remained under the strictest quarantine protocols in galactic history. Ships that ventured too close simply ceased. Not destroyed in any conventional sense, but rather dissolved into component atoms as reality itself became unstable. The space-time distortions within generated quantum storms so violent that even heavily shielded monitoring probes lasted mere seconds before being torn apart at the subatomic level. Admiral, Lieutenant Jex Karath's chittering voice cut through the bridge's silence. The insectoid communications officer's compound eyes reflected the crimson glow emanating from the sector as his 4 arms danced across multiple control interfaces. The deep-range sensors are detecting an impossible energy signature from within the storm zone. The pattern, it doesn't match any known technology in our databases. Thane's serpentine head turned toward his communications officer, processing streams of sensory data that would overwhelm most species. His race, the Draconi, had evolved to handle complex tactical situations, but even his enhanced neural pathways struggled with what the sensors were reporting. The energy signature was not only stable within the chaos of the Crimson Sector, but it was actively navigating through the quantum storms. Run a complete diagnostic on all detection arrays, Thane commanded, his deep voice carrying the authority of decades in command. This has to be a system malfunction. Nothing can survive in there, let alone maintain controlled movement. Commander Voss Sterling, the human tactical officer who had served aboard the Sovereign's Wrath for 3 years, approached with measured steps. His pale features were tense with concentration as he studied his portable scanner. Admiral, I've run the diagnostics twice. All systems are functioning within normal parameters. There is definitely something inside the Crimson Sector, and whatever it is appears to be completely unaffected by the local distortions. Through the reinforced viewing ports of the bridge, Thane could observe the Crimson Sector itself. It appeared as a vast sphere of swirling scarlet energy, shot through with veins of silver lightning that danced between dimensions. Occasionally, geometric shapes would briefly materialize within the chaos, impossible structures that seemed to exist in more than 3 dimensions simultaneously, causing severe discomfort to any being that looked directly at them. The sector had been created during the final days of the Etherian civilization, a mysterious species that had dominated the galaxy before vanishing without explanation nearly a millennium ago. According to the fragmentary records that survived, they had been conducting experiments with the fundamental nature of reality when something went catastrophically wrong. The explosion had torn a hole in space-time that still raged with uncontrolled energy after all these centuries. Sir, Lieutenant Korath's voice rose an octave with disbelief. I'm receiving a communication signal from within the sector. It's in a language the universal translator is having difficulty processing, but it appears to be attempting to establish contact. Thane felt his twin hearts skip in unison. In 4 decades of first contact situations, he had learned to expect the unexpected, but this challenged every principle of physics he understood. Put it through, but maintain all defensive protocols. The main display flickered to life, revealing the interior of what appeared to be a perfectly normal starship bridge. The lighting was slightly different from standard galactic configurations, warmer, somehow more organic, and the control interfaces used a mixture of physical and holographic elements that suggested an advanced but practical design philosophy. The beings operating the ship were bipedal, roughly Thane's height with pale skin and hair ranging from dark brown to silver gray. They moved with fluid efficiency, completely unperturbed by their impossible situation. One of them, a female with short auburn hair and confident posture, looked directly into the communication array and smiled. "This is Captain Nix Valeris of the human exploration vessel Starfall Runner. We've been monitoring your scanning attempts, Admiral Thane. Would you like to establish formal communications?" The bridge of the Sovereign's wrath fell into stunned silence. Thane felt his equilibrium shift as he processed what he was hearing. Not only was there a ship surviving inside the Crimson Sector, but its crew somehow knew his name and rank. How was this possible? "Captain Valeris," he began, then paused to collect himself. "This is Admiral Korvac Thane of the Galactic Defense Fleet. You are currently located within a restricted zone that has been under quarantine for 800 years. The region you're occupying should be instantly fatal to any known form of life. How are you still alive?" Captain Valeris's smile widened, revealing an expression of genuine amusement. "That's a fascinating question, Admiral. Before I answer, may I ask what you know about dimensional probability navigation?" "I've never encountered such a term," Thane admitted, his tactical mind already working to process the implications of this conversation. "I thought as much. Dr. Phoenix, would you care to explain?" Another human appeared on screen, this one younger with dark hair streaked with premature, silver and intense green eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Admiral Thane, what you call the Crimson Sector isn't actually dangerous to us. Your species and most others we've encountered perceive space-time as a fixed framework. You see the distortions here as destructive chaos because they violate your understanding of how reality should function." Dr. Phoenix gestured to something off-screen, and the view shifted to show the interior of their ship's observation deck. Through the transparent aluminum windows, Thane could see into the heart of the Crimson Sector itself. Instead of the chaotic maelstrom his sensors detected, the human ship's instruments were revealing structured patterns, geometric formations that pulsed with mathematical precision, creating corridors of stable space-time that flowed like rivers through the storm. "Humans," Dr. Phoenix continued, "evolved with brains that naturally process quantum uncertainty. We don't just accept paradox and probability, we navigate by them. What appears as destructive chaos to your sensors is actually a highly sophisticated transportation network left behind by the Etherians. They built it for minds that could embrace uncertainty rather than be destroyed by it." Commander Sterling's scanner chimed urgently. "This is impossible," he muttered, though his voice carried wonder rather than dismissal. "We've studied the Crimson Sector for centuries. Our greatest scientists have analyzed it from every conceivable angle. There are no structures, no patterns, just pure destructive energy." Captain Valeris leaned forward, her expression sympathetic but patient. "Commander, you're observing through the lens of deterministic physics. The Etherian network exists in probability space, not conventional physical space. Your instruments can't detect it because they're designed to measure certainties, while the network operates entirely in the realm of possibilities." To demonstrate her point, she activated what appeared to be a standard navigation display. Instead of showing conventional star charts, it revealed flowing streams of light that curved and branched through dimensions that challenged comprehension. The Starfall Runner appeared as a small point of light moving smoothly along one of these probability streams, with dozens of other human vessels visible at various points throughout the network. "We didn't cross into the Crimson Sector," Captain Valeris explained. "We were always here, just not in the timeline you were observing. Dimensional probability navigation allows us to exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously and collapse into the most favorable outcome for any given situation." Admiral Thane felt his worldview undergoing a fundamental shift. In all his years of service, he had prided himself on adaptability, on accepting new realities as they presented themselves. But this challenged everything he thought he understood about the nature of existence itself. "If what you're saying is true," he said slowly, "then you could travel anywhere in the galaxy instantaneously." "Not instantaneously," Dr. Phoenix corrected gently. "Time still flows, but it flows differently when you're navigating probability rather than space. We've been traveling for 2 months subjective time to reach this location, but from your perspective, we simply appeared. Lieutenant Korath looked up from his instruments, his antennae quivering with agitation. Admiral, I'm detecting massive changes in the sector's energy patterns. Something is happening. On the human ship's external cameras, the swirling chaos of the Crimson sector began to organize itself. Geometric structures materialized out of what had appeared to be empty space. Crystalline formations that stretched for thousands of kilometers in perfect mathematical harmony. They were beautiful and alien, clearly the work of a civilization that had transcended conventional understanding of physics. The Etherian gateway stations, Captain Valeris said with obvious awe in her voice. We've been searching for the primary nodes for months. They're hubs in the probability network, points where multiple timeline streams converge. From here, a ship with the right navigation systems could reach any point in the galaxy within days rather than years. The implications were staggering. If humans could navigate between different probability timelines and access this ancient network, they possessed capabilities that could reshape galactic civilization. Yet they seemed remarkably casual about their abilities, treating interdimensional travel as simply another form of transportation. Why haven't you made contact before? Now? Thane asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Captain Valeris's expression grew more serious. Because we've learned to be careful, Admiral. Not every timeline welcomes the presence of humans. In some probability streams, we're seen as dangerous anomalies that need to be contained or destroyed. We wanted to observe your civilization, to understand your nature before revealing ourselves. And what have you concluded? That you're fundamentally decent beings, she said simply. Your species has spent 8 centuries maintaining a quarantine around what you believed was a source of destruction, protecting the galaxy from what you thought was a terrible threat. That speaks well of your character and your commitment to the common good. The bridge of the Sovereign's wrath remained silent as Admiral Thane processed everything he had learned. His understanding of reality had been fundamentally altered in the space of a single conversation. The Crimson sector wasn't a scar on the universe, but a doorway to possibilities beyond imagination. The humans weren't intruders, but explorers who had unlocked secrets that his civilization couldn't even perceive. What happens now? He finally asked. Captain Valeris smiled again, and this time there was something almost paternal in her expression. Now, Admiral, we offer you a choice. You can continue to guard the Crimson sector as you always have, protecting your people from something you believe is dangerous. Or you can help us unlock the Etherian network for the benefit of all galactic civilization. The decision that would reshape the galaxy hung in the balance, waiting for Admiral Thane's response. As he looked out at the impossible structures materializing, within the Crimson storms he realized that everything was about to change. The network awakens. 3 days had passed since Admiral Korvac Thane made his historic decision to board the human vessel Starfall Runner. Standing now in the ship's quantum observation deck, he watched in fascination as reality itself bent and flowed around them like liquid starlight. The transfer had been accomplished through what Captain Nix Valeris called a probability bridge, a phenomenon where 2 ships could exist in the same space across different dimensional frequencies. One moment he had been on his own bridge. The next he was aboard the human vessel without any sensation of movement. The key to understanding dimensional probability navigation, Dr. Zara Phoenix was explaining as she led Thane through corridors that seemed to extend far beyond what the ship's external dimensions should have allowed, is accepting that consciousness itself plays a fundamental role in collapsing quantum possibilities into observable reality. Most species evolved neural pathways that unconsciously force quantum states into single, definite outcomes. Humans evolved differently. They passed through sections of the ship where crew members walked through walls that became permeable at their approach, manipulated controls that responded to thought as much as touch, and consulted instruments that displayed information in formats that shouldn't have been possible to perceive. Thane observed humans casually stepping between what appeared to be different versions of the same corridor, each slightly altered in configuration or lighting. How long have your people possessed this ability? Thane asked as they entered what Dr. Phoenix called the Etherian interface chamber. Always to some degree, she replied. adjusting controls on a crystalline console that hummed with barely contained energy. It's not a special talent, it's simply how human consciousness works. We've always been comfortable with paradox and uncertainty. Where other species say it is what it is, humans instinctively think it depends. That small difference in cognitive approach translates to a completely different relationship with the quantum substrate of reality. The chamber was filled with displays showing the intricate structure of the Ethereum network. Flowing streams of probability connected thousands of nodes across the galaxy, creating a transportation system that existed in the spaces between possibilities. Some streams pulsed with active energy while others lay dormant, waiting for the right kind of consciousness to activate them. The Etherians were like us in this regard, Dr. Phoenix continued, her fingers dancing across interfaces that seemed to respond to her intentions as much as her physical touch. They understood that the universe isn't a fixed structure, but a constantly shifting web of potential outcomes. Their civilization transcended physical limitations by learning to navigate this web directly. A soft chime echoed through the chamber, and Captain Valaris entered with Commander Voss Sterling close behind. Dr. Phoenix, we're receiving some interesting readings from the primary gateway station. It appears our presence has triggered something. Through the chamber's quantum windows, Thane could see the massive Etherian structures that had materialized within the Crimson Sector. The crystalline formations were no longer simply geometric patterns. They were beginning to pulse with rhythmic light, and energy cascades flowed between them like neural pathways in a vast cosmic brain. Suddenly, the air in the chamber shimmered, and a presence made itself known. It wasn't a voice in any conventional sense, but rather a direct communication that bypassed language entirely and spoke directly to their consciousness. Greetings, children of probability. We have waited long for minds capable of dancing with uncertainty to find us. Thane's reptilian features tightened with surprise while the human crew members seemed merely intrigued by this development. Captain Valaris stepped forward, addressing the empty air with the same calm confidence she had shown during their first contact. We are honored by your presence. Are you Etherian? I am what remains of Elder Kithara, consciousness keeper of the final expedition. When our physical forms transcended into pure probability 8 centuries ago, I chose to remain bound to the network as its guardian. I have been sleeping, dreaming of quantum possibilities, until your arrival stirred me to wakefulness. Dr. Phoenix's instruments began registering massive energy fluctuations throughout the network. Elder Kithara, we've learned to navigate your transportation system, but we don't fully understand its purpose or potential. Can you help us comprehend what the Etherians intended? The network was our gift to future civilizations, a bridge between the physical and the possible. We foresaw that species would eventually evolve capable of quantum consciousness, beings who could embrace uncertainty rather than fear it. You humans are the first to achieve this evolutionary threshold. Admiral Thane found his voice, though, addressing a disembodied consciousness challenged even his extensive experience with alien contact protocols. Elder Kithara, for 8 centuries my people have guarded the Crimson Sector, believing it to be a source of destruction. Were we wrong? You were not wrong to be cautious, Admiral. The network requires careful handling. In untrained minds, exposure to pure quantum possibility can indeed be destructive. Your quarantine protected species that were not yet ready. But humans can safely interface with our systems because they naturally think in terms of multiple outcomes rather than single realities. The implications of this revelation began to sink in. The dangerous Crimson Sector wasn't a weapon or an accident. It was a sophisticated technology waiting for the right species to unlock it. The Etherians had essentially created a galactic inheritance, but one that could only be claimed by minds capable of quantum reasoning. Commander Sterling's communication device chimed urgently. Captain, I'm receiving priority signals from multiple sectors. Word of our presence here has spread. We have incoming vessels from at least 6 different galactic powers, and their transmissions suggest they're not entirely friendly. Through the quantum windows, Thane could see the telltale distortions of ships dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the Crimson Sector. His own fleet was moving to intercept, but they were being joined by vessels from the crystalline hegemony, the Vorthan Empire, and several other major powers. The sight of human ships operating freely within the Forbidden Zone had triggered what appeared to be a major diplomatic crisis. This was inevitable. Elder Kythera's presence conveyed a sense of ancient wisdom tinged with concern. Fear of the unknown drives many species to aggression. They will see human mastery of the network as a threat to the existing galactic order. Captain Valeris activated the ship's long-range communications array. Admiral Thane, we're going to need your help. Your voice carries weight in the galactic community. Can you help us demonstrate that we're not a threat? Before Thane could respond, another ship materialized near their position. Not through conventional hyperspace travel, but through the same probability-based method the humans used. This vessel was larger than the Starfall runner, its hull bearing the insignia of the human exploration fleet. "This is General Mira Blackstone aboard the Quantum Dawn," came a crisp voice over the communication system. "Captain Valeris, we received your probability stream transmission. I'm here with a full diplomatic envoy and authorization from the Human Colonial Council to negotiate formal first contact protocols." The situation was escalating rapidly. What had begun as a chance encounter was becoming a pivotal moment in galactic history. Through the chamber's displays, Thane could see dozens of human ships materializing throughout the network, their crews working to activate dormant gateway stations across multiple star systems. "The test begins now," Elder Kythera communicated, and suddenly the chamber filled with holographic displays showing probability streams branching in countless directions. "I must determine whether humanity is truly ready to inherit the network. The decision will affect not just your species, but the entire galaxy." Dr. Phoenix studied the displays with intense concentration. "What kind of test, Elder Kythera?" "A test of wisdom and restraint. The network contains enough power to transform civilization or destroy it. You must demonstrate that humans can be trusted with such responsibility. I will present you with a scenario where you could use the network to solve a major galactic crisis, but only at significant cost. Your choices will determine whether the network remains active or shuts down permanently." The holographic displays shifted, showing a developing situation in the Outer Rim territories. A massive stellar collapse was threatening to destroy an entire system containing billions of lives from multiple species. Conventional evacuation methods would save only a fraction of the population, but the Etherian network could theoretically relocate entire planets to safety. "The catch?" Captain Valeris asked, though her expression suggested she already suspected the answer. Using the network at that scale would destabilize several probability streams, potentially erasing entire alternate timelines. You would save billions in this reality while condemning trillions in parallel realities. The choice is yours. The weight of the decision was staggering. Admiral Thane watched as the human leadership huddled together, debating options and consequences with a maturity that impressed him. These weren't conquerors seeking power. They were explorers grappling with responsibilities they hadn't sought. "There has to be a third option," Dr. Phoenix said finally. "The Etherians were masters of quantum possibility. Surely they developed safeguards for exactly this type of scenario. Perceptive. There is indeed an alternative, but it requires cooperation between species. The network's full potential can only be safely accessed when multiple quantum-capable consciousnesses work in harmony. Humans can navigate probability, but you need partners who can anchor reality." Admiral Thane felt pieces clicking into place in his tactical mind. "You're saying the network was designed for cooperation, not domination?" "Precisely. The Etherians believed that galactic civilization would advance through collaboration between species with complementary abilities. Humans provide quantum flexibility, while species like the Draconi offer stability and structure. Together, you can accomplish what neither could achieve alone." Over the following hours, a remarkable transformation took place. With Elder Kythera's guidance, joint crews of humans and aliens worked together to activate the network's safety protocols. The stellar collapse was averted not through brute force manipulation of reality, but through careful coordination of probability streams that guided the dying star's energy into harmless dimensional channels. The crisis resolved. The various galactic fleets began to stand down. Admiral Thane found himself serving as mediator between his own people and the human representatives, helping to establish the framework for a new era of cooperation. The network will remain active, Elder Kithara announced as the immediate crisis passed, but under shared stewardship. Humans will serve as navigators and guides, while other species contribute their own unique capabilities. The Etherian legacy belongs to all who can use it wisely. As Captain Valeris and Admiral Thane worked together to coordinate the new protocols, both realized they were witnessing the birth of a truly galactic civilization. The forbidden zone that had isolated species for centuries would now become the foundation for unprecedented cooperation. The Crimson Sector no longer burned with chaotic energy. Instead, it pulsed with the gentle rhythm of countless ships from dozens of species, all working together to unlock the secrets of probability and possibility. The network that had waited 8 centuries for the right inheritors had finally found not just one species worthy of its trust, but an entire galaxy ready to grow beyond its limitations. In the quantum depths of the Etherian stations, Elder Kithara's consciousness finally allowed itself to rest, knowing that the gift of his people would be used not for conquest, but for the betterment of all galactic civilization. The long watch was over. The age of cooperation had begun.